Anime presents That Time I Tuned Into a Podcast Just to Listen to Somebody Shill for a Publisher. I'm your host, Zeke Changers, along with the editor-in-chief, or Grand Poobah, of Honey's Anime, Alfonso Ortiz. How you doing, Fonzy?
I'm doing great. Thank you for the intro.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little, Grand Poobah Flintstones flashbacks here. Let's see. To this show, it will give us a quick recap on some of the manga and light novels that you've been missing. I'll start off with addressing one, then Fonzie will pipe in, and then we'll give you kind of a shared title that we both think that you might be interested in. You ready, Fonzie?
Absolutely. Definitely. Let's do it.
All right. We are going to make our best effort that we do not have to put a NSFW on this one. But
Yes.
we're going to talk a little bit about a interspecies reviewer anthology.
Yes. Anthology. Darkness.
Yes. If you haven't had enough of Suck Ya Girls, according to Yen Press, this is a collection of short comics by a variety of talented artists. From guys that did Everyday Life with Monster Girls or Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid.
Season 2.
They've
I'm
all
hoping for that.
They all came together to contribute their love for this very unique series that has found a place in our hearts, because it's all about the storytelling, isn't it?
Absolutely. No, I actually, I kid you not. There are some really interesting and funny situations and stories in this. Granted, some of them we have seen in the anime, but I would have to say a good half of them probably not.
Yeah. Let me give you a quick example of a couple of the stories. We are introduced to Lutika. She is a succubus girl. She's really cute, but she's having trouble, intimidating men to make them, to make them want to be aggressive or be aggressive back to her. She's like, she wants to be bullied. So she comes up with this idea to become basically, that preppy Ojo-sama-esque girl you knew in high school who, thought she was too good for everyone, and you would just love to knock her down a peg. Well, this Lutika decides to take on this character as her persona in the succubus tower, and starts getting guys to, convincing guys that she's mean and cruel, but because she's so petite, they decide they just want to bully her, and so she gets her way, and they get theirs. It's a symbiotic relationship between the succubus and her clients. But she's adorable the entire time, even when she's trying to be mean. I really have to say that's a fun one.
Yeah, that story was actually very nice. I did like it a lot. It also did seem like, because the way it played out in the beginning, she's learning. This is like her first attempt. She's trying to, like, so to speak, get a license so she can do this out in the brothels or joints, as they would say. So I agree. This one was one of the good stories. I did like it a lot, actually.
One of the cool parts of this story is that of this anthology is that we don't just meet our guys from the show. You get some side characters to join us for this adventure, and one of which I still can't remember his name. I kept going back through the book to see what his name was, but he goes to visit some halflings, and it's his first time. The halflings. He goes to visit some halflings. Yes, because and he gets walked through the process of what they do with the halflings. And if you aren't sure about a halfling, think of like an elf but short, technically hobbit, but without looking, chubby and stocky.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, the halfling brothel specials in the Oni-chan experience,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, and your
Like
very
Siscon kind of thing.
yes, yeah, your very helpful little sister
Mm-hmm.
decides to give you a bath and take care of everything Oni-chan needs, and he goes from uncomfortable to being like, oh my god, this is one of the greatest experiences I've ever had. I'm going to be back every week.
Mm.
um in in which I love the closing remark from the halfling. She's like, okay, you pedo.
Yep. From that one part, I do
She's like,
remember.
yeah, it is a great story. The visuals in this, that the artists put into these stories, each artist definitely has their own unique style. Some are more
Mm-hmm.
exaggerated than others.
Mm-hmm.
As usual, it does push the boundaries of what you would think is generally acceptable, but it still isn't. Let's see, what's the best way to put it? It like pushes it right up to the edge, in my opinion, at least in this manga, to where you would say it was hentai, because
Oh, in that sense.
you do not see fluids,
Mm-hmm.
at least when you're not dealing with slimes. You know,
True.
yes. So it's very interesting in
Mm-hmm.
that they push it right up to the edge. The whole manga is a big tease.
It is. They do a lot of implied illustrations, so
Yes.
that adds to it and everything. I totally understand that. It is. I did like it a lot. Gosh, there were like two of my favorite ones in there. Were what was it? The other one, the boss's hideout, which is funny
Oh
because
yes.
like the
Yes.
basis of that was that these succubi, I believe, will pretty much pretend to be female knights in the kingdom. You know, the
Oh
heroes,
yes,
the
that
ones
one.
the ones that would save the kingdom. But really, you're going into the boss's hideout because they've all been captured and
Yes.
are basically acting like the prisoners, and you get to do whatever you want with them and all that stuff. And it was really interesting because the one character I believe that was from the succubus tower shows up in here, and it's like, oh, it's our first time. And even the guys that were there for the implied play of the
Yeah.
situation were even saying like, oh, she's trying hard, it's her first time, to give her a chance or something like that. So
Yes.
it's like
Yes.
so funny.
She's trying. She really is. She's trying to get into
She
the
really
part, but
is.
she's really bad actor.
She's a really bad actor. So
But
you couldn't get
but the
into
story
it.
and the story even takes more of a twist at
Mm-hmm.
the end. They
Oh
they send her
yeah.
to they send her to boot camp.
Yep.
She could attempt to be a better knight.
So she can be a better knight and everything for that specific joint, that brothel, I guess you can say. That one was pretty interesting. And the other one that I really liked was the fire dragons one.
Okay, yeah,
So that one was pretty lighthearted in a sense, but it was interesting because this, you know, you would wonder what would like. Let's just say that all of these stories are based off of curiosity in the fantasy
yes,
world within the etchiness and stuff.
yes, yes,
So
yes,
that's what I love about this, is that they present to you things that they've thought long and hard about, and logically speaking too, if
yes,
these, based on myths and whatnot in the world, yeah, this stuff could happen. It probably would happen like this. And when you get to these fire dragons, you're like these beasts that are just made of fire or whatever, or condensing so much heat from them. You don't know how they would survive, or anyone around them would survive in that sense. And then you kind of think like, okay, well, if your curiosity were to go as far as wondering,
yes,
what things would happen sexually and all that stuff, you have this situation, the fire dragons section of it, and they basically use them as like yakitori grills.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
like they're there. It's like
The
having
naked
the
the naked
naked.
sushi. The naked
Yes,
sushi, but this time it's a hibachi.
yes, but it's a hibachi style. Yeah, so it's like having the naked sushi. You're eating sushi off of naked women. You know, obviously being very sanitary about it and stuff like that. But of course, these girls are like made of fire, or they're so hot that they're just like you can fry an egg on them easy. So they
Yeah.
get sliced meat and they lay it on them and they get turned on about that, and you're getting like turned on about the situation too while enjoying meat. And it's
Yes.
just funny.
Well, hey, the um, there was an opening there, but I'm just gonna walk right by that door. The last one that was very different than what I imagined.
The last review.
No, no, no. The last one in Interspecies that was very different than what I imagined.
Oh.
I'm gonna go with, remember the bunny place?
Oh yes, I do
They
remember the bunny place because
they
I
were not the kinds of bunny girls that you imagine.
no, I think
They
the place they went in was called the bunny hole or
Yes,
something like
yes,
that.
and the bunny girls, if you want to call them that, were much more bunny
Mm-hmm.
than uh, say most of the bunny girls that you see in anime. There was a
Yeah,
lot more bunny.
very
And
very anamorphic.
yes, more beast stars
Mm-hmm.
than
Mm-hmm.
uh, than what's her name? The bunny girl from Arfueta. Uh,
Oh,
I
I
can't,
honestly didn't watch that.
Shay,
Shay. Okay, cool.
yeah, yeah, more a little more beast stars than yeah
Than
Arfueta,
her.
but yeah, it was really I don't know why, but that was a little more disturbing to me than even the fairies and the dolls that were
Yeah,
in this.
the marionette one. Oh,
Yes, that's just creepy, but that could just be my own psychological trauma. Yeah, the marionettes were just
no, I
creepy.
agree. There's even an android one,
Yeah.
and oh gosh, that one I was like, what?
Why do you, why do you need to make? You've got like brothels everywhere.
Uh huh.
Why do you need? Apparently, there's no shortage of sex workers in this world.
No,
So why do
apparently,
you need to make basically sex golems?
yeah. I don't know what to say.
Yeah,
If you're tackling the fantasy world, you gotta include everything in the fantasy world with this type
yeah,
of genre. So that's also what I like about this is that the creator and the artists and illustrators obviously talked and
yeah.
had deep thoughts about all of this.
And it's probably it's probably it's fun. It's good, um, mature
Mm-hmm.
as in age wise, but immature. Good, mature, immature fun. You
Yes.
know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, kind of those conversations you have. If you've had too much to drink
Mm-hmm.
and you think you're really enlightened.
It's so good though.
It is.
It's
It
so
really is.
good.
When this one came across our desk, I'm like, I gotta read this one. It,
Yep.
I I had to read this
Same.
one.
Same.
All right. Okay. So moving on to what you've been reading.
Yes.
You took a dip into interspecies, but what else have you been reading?
So I did take a dip in interspecies, and then another thing that I'm reading, which is going to be a 180-degree turn.
Okay.
All right. This this title is or this manga is from Seven Seas.
Okay.
And to be quite honest with you, I'm really liking what they have coming out of there. They're very diverse with their storytelling. To tell you the truth, a lot of it seems pretty seinen and adult like. So I don't know. Maybe that's why I like it a lot. But this one I really, really, really enjoyed very much. And so it's called Blue giant.
Blue giant.
Blue
And I
giant.
imagine we're not talking about a star in the sky.
Absolutely not. Nor a creature, a huge
Okay.
creature of sorts. So, the blue giant. This is basically your story. It's a modern time. It's going to be in the past, probably like around, I don't know, because I would imagine I didn't do much research in the sense to see how accurate the storytelling is, if it's like a true story or based on true events or anything like that. It doesn't seem like it, but at the same time, it kind of does that, and I have a feeling that's why the story is so good. It really gets you. There's a lot of relatable situations, feelings, thought process of what the main character is, and his name, the main character is Dai. He's a high school student for the most part of the story. That does go into flashback situations from time to time,
Okay.
but ultimately, he's a basketball player. He loves basketball, sports, and whatnot. Athletic in a sense. But one day his older brother takes him to a show for his birthday. And this show ended up being a jazz cafe show. So he heard jazz for the first time. And that night it changed him, basically. So the type of jazz that you would say that he's getting into is like interpretive improv jazz, I guess, in a sense, which happens to be very eclectic. You always go for the feeling in the mood that you have at the moment from what you're hearing, because these are people that really get into the music and they just kind of like let loose. So the closest thing I can describe this manga to is that new Pixar movie Soul that's on
Okay.
Disney.
All right. Yeah,
Well,
I
I
saw
don't know
that
if
one.
it's
Yeah.
Pixar, but I'm not too sure. But it's on
Yeah,
Disney. So
yeah,
yeah.
it is Pixar. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So yeah, I was correct. Thank goodness. But anywho, yeah, the closest thing that I can relate this manga to is Soul on Disney, and it is beautiful. It is great. Uh, Again, you have Dai, like his brother takes him to see this, so he takes it upon himself to be like, oh, I want to try and pursue that. He's like, I wanted to do sports, but he didn't know exactly what to do beyond high school or middle school, really, I guess you can say, at the time that he was thinking about this. So he basically mentioned this to his brother. His brother was doing good with his job, and he was getting better and better with his skills to get higher positions, or maybe even getting a new job at a new company. He decides to buy a tenor saxophone for Dai, and that's when Dai takes it upon himself to practice every night down by the closest river where he's at, and he just wails on it. He's just trying to figure it out. He had no necessary lessons to him, like getting the instrument,
Playing it by
but
ear. Yeah.
yeah, just play it by ear. You got that jazz feeling. You got to do it with your soul, with what your mood is like and all. So that's something that this manga does really well with trying to connect you with, even though there's no actual auditory references here or anything like that. It's all text. Like you just hear like do 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 beep bop do boop bop do.
Yeah.
Like, so they try and mimic that within the manga, and so basically he gets the idea. He's like, I'm gonna be the greatest jazz player ever. He goes out, happens to get his first gig. Obviously he did horrible, but
Yeah.
there were people there that felt where he was coming from and didn't want to deny him that. So like they were out there to give him a chance, and he ends up getting introduced by some shop owner, that like an instrument shop owner, and he introduces him to a famous artist, or at least an instructor. But he's pretty famous and he knows his stuff, so he ends up teaching him how to play the saxophone. Starting
Okay.
from the basics, reading music, holding a key note, prolonging that key note for a certain amount of time. Breathing, mouthpiece positioning, and holding. So all that, and during that whole stretch of the storytelling, there are points where all of a sudden it takes like a dip into the future, where you're talking to the people that he interacted with when he was in middle school, high school, to the point where he was like, I want to be the best, and he ends up being the best, is what it seems like. So these people, you have interactions with people in his circle where like, oh yeah, I remember him back in this day. He was great. He said this and this and that, and that's when I realized that he really loved jazz, and it was probably the first time he ever told me that he was going to be the best jazz player in the world. Imagine that. And like he says, and then like it cuts off and then it goes back into the story when he's in high school. So there's a lot of moments like that. It's really cool. And in fact, it ends with one of those moments, but I guess it ends on more of a moment where he I guess gets in trouble with the law and in some sort. And
because he's a jazz musician, it's the
yep.
reefer, isn't it?
Well, they don't say that, but let's just say that there's alcohol involved. So there's at least that.
Yes.
But yeah, and you only hear this in passing from like the future telling of how the story jumps to the, I guess what would be the present, really. So like it ends with him, that he got in trouble with the law with like a fight or whatever and all that stuff, and apparently he's a bit of an alcoholic. So yeah, but it's, I don't know, I had never read anything like this as far as like a music anime manga, I'm sorry, except for maybe like Hibike Euphonium, which is wonderful. I loved it. I have connections with that because I was like in band in high school and middle school. I played the trumpet and everything. So yeah.
The trumpet. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I wasn't sure. Maybe you were with the flags.
No. 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 Actually, believe it or not, I've played a lot of instruments in my life. I started out playing the violin and viola and cello back when I was like in elementary school all through, and then middle school I was keyboard, trumpet, baritone. And then what else? And then I kind of went into like DJing and stuff like that back in the day. So I've been in the music scene for a while.
Far more skilled than myself, considering they consider me beat deaf.
Beat deaf.
When everyone's clapping and their hands are together. Guess where mine are.
I totally understand what you're saying, because I mean, trust me. It's difficult at times, but if you're into music and you can get that feeling of in the mood for what you're listening to, and it just takes you somewhere else, I highly recommend read this manga, Blue Giant, because it gives you that same feeling. It's so good.
What kind of art style? I saw the cover of it, and the art style seemed to have, I guess, an older, more mature feel.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, it is a bit of a little older look. It kind of reminds me of gosh, I forget the artist's name, but there's like this new manga, Asadora, that's coming out from Viz. It's got kind of that art style. It almost kind of has like that Mermaid Stories one that's also from there. If you want to give like old art style, granted the genre is completely different, it also almost kind of has the art style of Junji Ito, his little horror kind of art drawn stuff. It looks almost like that, just not as grim and dark.
A little more, I would almost say it gives me a little more of a 90s feel.
Yes.
At least that's where I'm kind of placing it.
Early
90s genre.
Late 80s, early 90s, around there. Yeah, that's kind of like the feel you get from it.
A little Speed Racer-ish, a little early Macross, that kind of feel.
Yes.
The more elongated faces, I think that's is a way to describe the bodies.
Oh.
Their faces are a little more oval than they are round. They're a little more round now. Yeah. It sounds like a fascinating story, and like I said, as someone who has the musical talent of Steve Martin in The Jerk, it might be a place to go vicariously into the mind of a jazz musician. Because
I mean,
Yeah,
he played good music in The Jerk. That was actually pretty good music after a while when he got the hang of it. I think it was more just the dancing he never got down. So
yeah, because I yeah, I love music and I have it playing in my classroom all the time. And sometimes it's even the
wonderful.
Honey's Anime Spotify list.
Ooh,
So yeah,
nice. Yes,
yeah.
get those
So
kids into the
get those kids
otaku
in.
industry.
Yes. But I really I love listening to music, especially at work and when I'm doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who can't read it, can't play it, and often makes up lyrics to songs
Mm-hmm.
because he's singing to his cat. Um, yeah, it's yeah to the point where my wife tends to like want to throw things at me, but um, it's I think I could appreciate something like Blue Giant because where it seems to be coming from, it comes from a true the artist and the writer must have a true love of music to put that
Mm-hmm.
much effort into how it
Yeah,
feels.
actually, very true. And funny that you should mention that because they do have some bonus comic strips at the end, and it is basically the editor and the creator. And so, to answer that question for you, believe it or not, is that they basically are teamed up together and everything, and then they're deciding on what they wanted to do. And I think the creator, like all of a sudden, was kind of like, I want to do like a music manga, and the guy was like, "Oh, music, that's awesome. I'm from Sendai. Sendai is all about music and everything, and especially jazz." And so he would talk about jazz and stuff like that. So they ended up going to Sendai, and the editor was the creator's tour guide. And so he basically all the places that you would see certain landmarks that are in the manga actually do exist in Sendai, so that is represented accurately. Basically, the way Dai kind of acts and feels is representation of the editor in a sense.
Okay,
So
cool.
so you get that feel from it, which is really nice. And so when you see that comic strip, that bonus strip at the end, you're like, oh
Yeah.
wow. And then another thing that they do is that because the editor's from Sendai and he's like, oh, it's a music thing. He kept talking about music and jazz and stuff like that. And that's when they went to a festival, a really huge music festival. They have all sorts of music, jazz, big band, rock music,
It,
acapella, whatever. Like,
but I have to really say the part that you don't think of as a American
mm-hmm,
anime and manga fan is when you think of Japan, you generally think of pop. And so
mm-hmm,
the idea that you can go to a jazz festival, which is truly a uniquely American sound, um, that's been adopted
mm-hmm,
in a country so disparate from ourselves is absolutely fascinating to see
yeah,
how another culture puts their own spin, how they can make jazz their own. That
you
just
know,
sounds absolutely fascinating.
that's very true. And I would honestly have to say that's mainly because of how universal the quote unquote language is. Because you have math, art,
Yeah.
music, and those lucky enough to, I guess, experience it would be other enlightening ways that you can interpret things in life, like nature or food porn in that sense. Like anyone can understand that and
Yes.
anyone can enjoy it, like comedy, even like it's interpreted comedy, miming, and all that stuff. So like, yeah, when you find your niche and it's a part of like that sort of thing, you're gonna come across a lot of
Hey,
cultures, different
I was
sounds.
I was flying on a inter-country trip in Egypt. I was on a
Oh.
plane. They had Tom and Jerry. No,
Yeah.
because why? Because anvils are funny in any language.
That's true. That's
So
funny.
yes, I understand. There's certain universals out there, and
Mm-hmm.
jazz is definitely one of them. All right,
Absolutely.
we're gonna move on here to what I would like to call Honey Chan's picker. Let's go with more like Honey Chan's preview today.
Ah.
I just finished reading the latest Sword Art Online that was released as translation here in the United States.
Ooh.
It's called the Initial Ring arc. It's a
Oh,
brand new arc, brand new arc. And
nice.
so where okay, it takes place after like 3 months after the ocean turtle, the ship where uh, Kirito and
Uh-huh.
Alice and Asuna were, and the it's like your gateway to Underworld,
I
and so
see.
Kirito and Asuna have been brought back from their 200-year stint in Underworld, of course, not remembering any of it, and then uh, the and then we have Alice, who we got out of Underworld into a humanoid body to act as like an ambassador for the idea that virtual people can be people too,
Mm-hmm.
especially those unique ones in Underworld.
Nice.
And Alice, to hang with her friends like Kirito and Asuna, has decided to start diving into Alfheim Online and
Mm-hmm.
diving into, if you remember, Alfheim Online is the fairy world,
Mm-hmm.
and what was built in the sky above it as kind of like an inset was New Einkrad,
Yeah.
a new Einkrad
Version.
that is not a death game,
Yeah.
but allows people to go through it and play it as it's supposed to have been played,
Mm-hmm.
all built on the Seed network, which is what Kirito released the date how to build a cool VR world. Basically, he
Mm-hmm.
released that Seed data to the public, and what happens is Asuna, Kirito, and Alice are in the cabin, and then basically an earthquake happens, which
Okay.
is weird because it's a virtual world.
Yeah.
Earthquakes shouldn't happen. And what they quickly find out is New Einkrad is falling apart and falling down to Alpine. Uh,
Yo.
yeah, big problem. They want to save the cabin. They're trying to figure out a way to save the cabin, knowing that it would smash to pieces, even though it's technically an immortal object
Mm-hmm.
when it hits the ground. And so they change. They put on their fairy wings and start pushing it and see if they can change its trajectory to somewhere softer, and eventually they run their fairy wings disappear, and then they come crashing into the ground, and the cabin's crashed into the ground, and it's a wreck. And they quickly find out that realize they are not in Alfheim. They quickly find out that they are somewhere else, and their stats have all been reset. And
Ooh.
even if Kirito were to equip one of like the Excludor, his big black sword,
Uh-huh.
he couldn't carry it. It would crush him like a grape because he doesn't have the stats to carry such a big sword.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
they have to start it. They have to start. Even the UI, the user interface changes, but they can log out. the The main reason they are in a panic is because they don't want the cabin to disappear, because that was their home in and their place of refuge during the death game, and then they rebuilt it or repurchased it uh, in the new one in the new Einkrad, and it really meant a lot to them, and they didn't want to see it disappear. So they go about trying to fix it, but they've got to get base skills like carpentry and chopping down trees for resources, because they're in a
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
survival, massively multiplayer online game called
Mm-hmm.
Initial Ring, which apparently forcibly converted everyone's character in Alfheim Online and some other MMORPGs. So I mean, if I was a player, I'd be really pissed and trying to find out who just screwed all my data that I've sunk thousands of dollars into equipping and time equipping. So I'd be kind of pissed. You
So
also
would
have,
I.
yeah, I mean, you also got like Elizabeth, Silica, and Yui. Yui, their little fairy pixie daughter, who's an AI. They get caught up in this. They were on the 45th floor when things fell apart. and Yui is now considered a player character, which
Huh.
doesn't make any sense considering she's actually an
Yeah.
AI. But does that mean she can die if she gets hurt?
It seems like it, because I
But what?
honestly,
But she can't log out. I mean, she's actually unable to log out.
yeah, that's why I feel like if she does die, then she's like dead, in that form at least.
Are you quoting Kirito there?
No. No, that's just what it sounds like. It honestly does. And I mean, and to be quite honest with you, I mean, I've read up a little bit about this because I didn't know that it was already out or anything like that. And when you had mentioned it, I was like reading up a little bit about it and stuff. So I'm really excited about this because from what I'm understanding here, this is the last arc. It's the final arc.
Well, it's listed as the final arc, but in Reki's notes at the end of the book,
Uh huh.
he makes a point to say that Initial Ring is completely unknown territory. He said up to that point, all of his SAO stories have appeared as web stories. So he and the audience knew where the story was going as he was writing the light novels.
I have actually heard that.
This is brand new material.
Wow.
And
Huh.
so he doesn't even know exactly where the story's going as he's writing it. That is, to me, makes that story even that much more exciting. We do know
Oh.
that at some point that they've got to go back to
Mm-hmm.
Underworld. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out either. But this arc, I mean, we don't even know how long it's going to be. Remember,
I
Aincrad
wonder.
was multiple volumes. The Phantom Bullet was a short set, and so we have no idea, and he doesn't either, and that's what makes it absolutely great. Now, he may have stuff out there already that hasn't been translated, but
Mm-hmm.
as far as the being on the English side of his translations, eh, I don't know what to expect next.
All I know is so what progressive anime was announced, so that's probably going to come out first, and then this novel came out, so they're going to show this afterwards. That kind of makes
Yeah.
sense if they want to give you a little feel for the past.
Yes,
Uh,
and which is interesting because it's going to introduce some new characters.
yeah.
Um, Progressive is going to introduce characters like what her name in the show was Rat Argo the Rat.
Oh, Argo. Okay.
Yeah, Argo the Rat was an information broker that you find in SAO in Progressive.
Uh-huh.
Argo comes back. She shows up in this new show, in this new arc. So
Mm,
they're kind of feeding things in a little bit
so
with
she's showing up. Wow. I
you
wonder
know
what she's got.
yeah. So
What
yeah,
does
they're
she have to
feeding
do?
Argo in to feeding Argo into the initial ring arc, and you're gonna have her introduced to the public in Progressive. So because she was part of the Progressive series, but was
Mm-hmm.
never mentioned in the anime or any of the eventual ones. The way you really would know her is if you did the playthroughs of the SAO games.
Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh.
think the Hollow Realization
Oh,
is one of the key
I remember
ones.
playing that one.
Yeah, I think Argo's in that.
No, you're correct. She is.
Yeah, yeah, Argo's in that. So yeah, it's I've never played the games, but I've watched all the cutscenes.
Yeah, you know what? The cutscenes are real. There's probably more cutscenes than the actual gameplay, and it's not listed. It's not listed as a visual novel, and you're kind of scratching your head like, well, you probably should slap that tag on there
Yeah,
then.
so
There's a
I've definitely
lot.
seen most of the cutscenes. So it's one of those like, all right, I'm really intrigued by this.
Huh.
I just recently finished reading the Hollow Realization manga, which introduced you to
Mm-hmm.
Argo and several other characters. So it was really interesting to give me some more background for the progressive novels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you meet Alice and everything.
Yeah. So
And gosh, yeah, and the Alicization. I'm sorry, just to point out, like, I loved how they brought back a lot of the characters from the first SAO Gungale
yeah.
Online, and I was like, oh my god, I was like, oof,
Yep.
that was
Yeah.
intense, so good.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, they really stepped it up with the some of the battle scenes at the in the end of that
Mm-hmm.
arc's anime. They really did, and I was greatly impressed. So I would really like to see a little more, even though I'm not a huge fan of Gungale Online. I would love to have seen more of the little clip they showed at the beginning of the SAO movie, where the team is playing in Gungale Online, and you have like uh, Silica operating a
Oh,
minigun. So
is this one ordinal scale?
yeah, in the very beginning of Ordinal
Ah, that's
Scale,
right.
they
Yeah.
have a clip.
Okay.
They have a clip of them playing in Gungale in Gungale Online, and Silica's on top of a jeep using a minigun.
Yep, I remember that.
And I'm like, what I need now is a crossover between her and the Pink Devil. Uh, fr-
Oh, um, the rabbit devil girl. What the
yeah,
hell is her name?
yeah,
I forget
yeah,
her
yeah.
name, but yes, I loved her. She was so good. I loved her
Yeah,
in
what
the
we need
little
is a
spin-off series.
crossover with those two
Yes.
in Gun Gale.
Oh, that was
That's a
so
buddy.
good.
That's a buddy story to begin with. She should be included in the girls' ops stories too. So, but
Right?
all right, yeah,
I think so
all right,
too.
okay. We do definitely need to wrap it up here. So, we want to thank you all for tuning in to that time I tuned into a podcast just to listen to someone shill for a publisher. And we remind you that this product has been made possible with the cooperation of Viz Media, Yen Press, Seven Seas Entertainment, Kodansha, and most of all, Honey's Anime, the place for the anime enthusiast. Until next time, for Fonzie and myself, we thank you and keep listening and keep reading.
Yes, thank you very much, guys, for tuning in. Until next time.